Diane Keaton, the legendary Hollywood actress, before she passed away on October 11th, 2025. The entire film world was stunned, not only because it lost an icon, but because of what she revealed before leaving, about youth, love, and the pains fame could not conceal. She had once been adored by Al Pacino, admired by Woody Allen, and even pursued by Keanu Reeves. Yet Diane never married, having witnessed Pacino's infidelity and his children with someone else, while Keanu Reeves saw her only as a mother figure. After all the glitz and glamour, was Diane left with nothing but loneliness? Or, as she once said, "I choose freedom because love is sometimes a prison." In today's video, we'll delve into the untold secrets of Diane Keaton's love life to understand why she chose lifelong solitude. For over half a century in the spotlight, Diane remained one of Hollywood's most unique actresses, not only because of her talent, but because of her decision to live differently. While many of her contemporaries married, had children, and stepped away from public life, Diane stayed alone in her sunlit Los Angeles home, where paintings, books, and old music kept her company. Many wondered about this unusual choice, and she only revealed its truth in her later years. It was during a quiet afternoon in Los Angeles, in a small wooden house in Beverly Hills, where Diane had lived for nearly 3 decades. The rooms were bright with sunlight, the walls covered in black and white photographs. Her mother, a childhood in Santa Ana, days on the set of Annie Hall, and a blurred image from The Godfather. Diane wore a white sweater, her silver hair tied neatly, her voice still gentle, if raspier than before. When a young reporter asked why she had never married, Diane laughed, shy like the 25-year-old girl who had once enchanted so many men. Yet a thin veil of sadness flickered in her eyes. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she gazed out the window toward a garden where lavender swayed lightly in the breeze. A long pause followed. The reporter later said it felt as if she were speaking not to him, but to her own past. Finally, Diane smiled softly. "I have loved so deeply that I could not love anyone else. Perhaps that's why I never married." The reporter, despite dozens of prepared questions, didn't dare interrupt. He only noticed her slightly trembling hands, fondling a now cold cup of tea, as if each touch drew her back into distant memories. Diane continued, her voice growing softer. "We each have someone we cannot forget, no matter how many years pass or how many others we meet. And sometimes it's because of them that we never take another step forward." Then she stood, walked to a wooden bookshelf filled with scripts and journals, and from the top took down a worn brown leather notebook, frayed at the edges. She didn't open it, only placed it gently on the table. "Everything I ever wrote about him is in here. I once thought I would burn it, but I couldn't. Some things, if erased, mean erasing part of yourself as well." Afternoon light fell across her face, once celebrated by all of Hollywood, now marked by the wrinkles of time and memory. For a moment, Diane was silent, then chuckled lightly. She did not regret loving, only that she could not hold that love longer. No one in the room needed to ask anything more. They understood. The person she spoke of, the one who left her unable to marry, unable to forget, unable to forgive, still lived somewhere in her heart, like a shadow that would never fade. So who was that man? The one who made Diane Keaton, a smart, independent, vibrant woman, choose solitude for her entire life? Who could make a woman who had walked beneath hundreds of stage lights, celebrated by all of Hollywood, hold an image in her heart that refused to fade? Who was it that made Diane, even past 80, still tremble and gaze into the distance, as if searching for a face lost in the mist of memory? Let us look back at the story of Diane Keaton's most passionate lovers. The first, and perhaps the most defining, was the man who shaped her heart for 15 long years. Al Pacino. It was one evening in 1971, under the dim lights of a Harlem restaurant in New York, when Al Pacino and Diane Keaton met for the very first time. They were there for The Godfather, the film that would soon carry both into the heart of Hollywood's spotlight. Pacino, 31, with deep eyes and the weary grace of an orphaned soul, played Michael Corleone. Diane Keaton, 25, radiant and sharp-witted, was Kay Adams, Michael's gentle wife on screen. That night, amid the laughter of the crew, Keaton found herself instantly drawn to Pacino. In her memoir, Then Again, she recalled, "Al was charming, funny, and never stopped talking. There was something in him, part genius, part madness, and oh, he was handsome." But Pacino, shy with women, only smiled and kept his distance. At that time, they were simply colleagues, unaware of how fate would soon entwine their lives. 3 years later, during the filming of The Godfather Part 2, everything changed. Long days on set and intense scenes between Michael and Kay sparked a very real love. Pacino and Keaton began dating, living near each other in Beverly Hills, sharing endless late-night talks about films, theater, and dreams too big for the screen. Keaton once called Pacino the most entertaining man she had ever known, while Pacino, in his memoir Sonny Boy, confessed, "With Diane, I found rare peace." Their love burned brightly, but it was never simple. Grueling shooting schedules often kept them apart. Pacino consumed by Serpico, Keaton immersed in Annie Hall. Their romance became a rhythm of breakups and reconciliations. It was a fusion of art and passion. Pacino sent letters from Rome filled with tender words that made Keaton's heart flutter. She, with her insight and sensitivity, helped refine his craft, while he endlessly admired her brilliance. They appeared together in all 3 parts of The Godfather, and every time the camera rolled, the chemistry between Michael and Kay seemed to echo their own turbulent affection. But Pacino's eccentric nature and fear of commitment kept an invisible wall between them. Keaton once said, "We had wonderful moments, but Al was an unpredictable genius. Sometimes he lived in another world." Tension grew as Keaton longed for something steady, a home, a family, while Pacino, who once declared that marriage is a nightmare, kept avoiding it. In his memoir, he admitted, "I'm not good at chasing women. If they don't take the lead, I stop." Keaton tried desperately to hold them together, but distance, ambition, and mismatched desires slowly wore them down. "I was crazy about him," she later confessed, "but loving Al was never easy. Letters from Rome couldn't fill the silence when they were apart." The climax came in 1990, when they finished The Godfather Part 3, and their long, complicated love story reached its quiet end. Keaton, then in her early 40s, finally gave him an ultimatum: "Marry me, or we end it." Pacino, though deeply in love, could not overcome his lifelong fear of marriage, and so he chose to walk away. Later, Keaton said softly, "I wanted a man not easily won, but I didn't want to force Al either." Their nearly 2-decade-long romance, filled with breakups and reconciliations, came to an end quietly. No scandals, no bitterness, only beautiful memories and the faint ache of what might have been. After their breakup, they maintained a rare kind of friendship. They didn't speak often, but whenever they met, it felt as if time had stood still. In 2017, during Keaton's AFI Lifetime Achievement Awards ceremony, Pacino stood on stage, looked at her with warmth, and said, "Dee, you are a great artist. I will love you forever." The words moved the audience to tears, and Keaton's gentle smile said everything neither of them needed to explain. Pacino continued his illustrious career, from Scent of a Woman to The Irishman, but his personal life remained restless. He never married, though he had children with several women: Jan Tarrant, Beverly D'Angelo, and more recently, Noor Al-Fallah, 54 years his junior. Yet none ever replaced Keaton in his heart. In his memoir, he admitted, "Diane gave me a comfort I couldn't find anywhere else." Friends later revealed he often regretted never proposing to her, calling Diane the love of his life. That relationship left her quietly disheartened, uncertain if she could ever believe in love again. But her story didn't end there. Alongside Pacino, another man had been her creative soulmate for 4 decades, Woody Allen. The world first saw their magic in Annie Hall, 1977, where Allen played the anxious romantic lead, and Keaton's character, with her floppy hats and quirky charm, redefined fashion itself. They had first met years earlier on a New York afternoon in 1969, in a rehearsal room for the play Play It Again, Sam. Allen, then a rising director and comedian with a nervous grin and endless wit, was searching for his leading lady. Keaton walked in, tall, eccentric, wearing baggy men's jeans and an oversized shirt, her hair a playful mess. Her natural spark captivated him instantly. In his memoir, Apropos of Nothing, Allen wrote, "She was like a beautiful version of Huckleberry Finn, charming, funny, utterly original." They began dating soon after the audition, and their love quickly became the foundation of cinematic brilliance. It blossomed in dim rehearsal halls and long walks through Manhattan. Allen, shy and awkward with women, took a week to ask her to dinner. But once he did, they were inseparable. Two souls bound by humor, art, and philosophy. They moved into Allen's Manhattan penthouse, where Keaton would laugh in his old sweaters while teasing him for his absurd jokes. Allen called her his first muse, the woman who inspired his most intelligent, whimsical heroines. Together, they created Play It Again, Sam on Broadway, and later its 1972 film version. Their love was both romantic and artistic. "I make films for one audience only," Allen confessed, Diane Keaton. The years that followed were filled with laughter and creativity. They filmed Sleeper in 1973, where Keaton played a free-spirited scientist, and Love and Death in 1975, a witty satire on war and philosophy. Allen cherished their private moments, poker games with Keaton's family on Thanksgiving, or quiet European trips spent debating Nietzsche over dinner. In her memoir, Then Again, Keaton affectionately called Allen an indestructible cockroach, resilient, funny, yet often infuriating in his sarcasm. They tested each other's patience, but that honesty only deepened their bond. Allen once told People magazine, "Diane is one of the finest natural comedians I've ever known." Still, behind the laughter lay conflict. Allen, deeply attached to New York and resistant to change, feared commitment. Keaton, in contrast, longed to explore Hollywood and expand her creative world. While he clung to the familiar, she yearned for the unknown, and that quiet divide began to pull them apart. She often felt trapped by their closeness, a bond that sometimes felt less like free love and more like a quiet dependency neither could escape. Keaton admitted they often argued over small things. Allen's eccentric habits, his obsession with New York, or their differences in ambition. Though deeply in love, Allen could be selfish in his creativity. He wrote films for himself and Diane, sometimes making her feel more like a character in his story than an equal partner in life. Their greatest conflict lay in geography and dreams. Keaton longed to soar beyond Broadway, to embrace Hollywood and the wider world, while Allen remained anchored in the comfort of Manhattan. "We loved each other," she once said, "but sometimes it felt like a tragic comedy." The turning point came in 1972, when The Godfather called her to California. It was a choice between love in New York and a golden opportunity in Hollywood. Allen, unwilling to leave his city, stayed behind, and Keaton, heartbroken but resolute, chose to go. They parted quietly, no bitterness, only whispered regrets. Back on The Godfather set, Keaton met Al Pacino again, beginning the on-and-off romance that would span 15 years. For Alan, that farewell left a deep scar. Yet despite the breakup, they never turned into strangers. Their friendship survived the storms of Hollywood and endured for life. They went on to collaborate in 6 more films: Annie Hall, which earned Keaton her Oscar for Best Actress, Interiors, 1978, Manhattan, 1979, Radio Days, 1987, and Manhattan Murder Mystery, 1993, where Alan called her back to replace Mia Farrow amid scandal. Through it all, Diane remained his truest confidant. "I don't read film reviews," Alan once said. "I only care about Diane's opinion." She defended him even through controversy. When Dylan Farrow's abuse allegations surfaced in 1992, and again during the Me Too movement in 2018, Keaton tweeted, "Woody Allen is my friend and I still trust him." She compared him to her father, calling him the strongest man I've ever met. After their separation, Allen's life grew more complicated. In 1980, he began a long relationship with Mia Farrow, making 13 films together. But by 1992, everything collapsed when Farrow discovered he was romantically involved with her adopted daughter, Soon-Yi Previn, then 21. The scandal, alongside Dylan Farrow's allegations, nearly destroyed his career. Allen denied the accusations, but found himself shunned by much of Hollywood. Through it all, Keaton stayed loyal. In 2014, she accepted the Cecil B. DeMille Award on his behalf, calling him a genius. Allen later moved to Europe, married Soon-Yi in 1997, and settled into a quiet life in Paris. When Keaton passed away at 79, Allen, then 89, was devastated. His tribute said it all. She was the most wonderful woman on the planet. Their love, he said, never truly ended. It simply transformed into the immortal films they left behind. If Woody was her soulmate, then Warren Beatty was Hollywood's irresistible rebel. Keaton once said with a tremor in her voice, "There was this sweet anguish of love I felt whenever I saw his face in a moment we shared." She thanked him tenderly at an award show, saying, "Thank you, Warren, and congratulations." Diane had once rejected Beatty's marriage proposal, choosing solitude after too many heartbreaks. Yet Beatty was the man she had secretly admired since first seeing Splendor in the Grass in 1961. When they finally met, Keaton, then 32 and fresh off her Annie Hall Oscar, was at the peak of her career. Beatty, 41, was already a Hollywood icon, known for his charm and a long list of lovers, from Natalie Wood to Julie Christie. They met through a mutual friend in the theater world, and Beatty was instantly captivated by Keaton's wit, intelligence, and radiant, offbeat beauty. He invited her to dinner, and a passionate romance began. It lasted 5 years, filled with private flights, laughter, and moonlit nights by the sea. Their love reached its height in 1981 when Beatty cast her as Louise Bryant in Reds, the film he wrote, directed, and starred in himself. On set, their chemistry was electric. Keaton, as the fierce activist, and Beatty, as the driven journalist John Reed, blurred the line between performance and reality. Every heated argument on screen mirrored the intensity of their real-life passion. They traveled through Europe together, where Beatty showered her with lavish gifts and spoke endlessly about his political dreams. Their years were filled with passion and adventure. Beatty, ever the romantic, once flew from Los Angeles to New York solely to hold Diane's hand during a flight because she was afraid to fly. "He sat beside me the whole trip, kissed me goodbye, then took the next flight back," she recalled fondly. For her, it was a gesture both tender and unforgettable. But as time passed, tension crept in. Beatty, a notorious perfectionist, controlled everything, from film scripts to dinner plans, leaving Diane, who cherished independence, feeling suffocated. So when Warren proposed marriage, she refused without hesitation. She longed for equality, for love that didn't require permission or constant reassurance. Beatty, though deeply in love, was consumed by work and terrified of commitment. His long list of past lovers made Diane quietly wonder if she was just another fleeting chapter. Their arguments were often trivial: lifestyle differences, career choices, or simply his insistence on structure while she thrived on freedom. Beatty was rooted in old Hollywood tradition. Diane was chasing the unknown. These contrasts, subtle at first, slowly grew into unbridgeable gaps. Finally, in 1984, everything unraveled over a single photograph that reignited buried insecurities. Diane left, tearful but composed, her heart broken yet without bitterness. Their 5-year romance ended not in scandal but in mutual understanding. What remained were vivid memories, love, laughter, and the bittersweet scent of regret. Even after parting, they stayed close friends, their connection impossible to erase. They spoke with genuine respect whenever paths crossed. In 2017, during Diane's AFI Lifetime Achievement Award ceremony, Warren stood on stage and said with warmth, "I love her. She's a story full of surprises, integrity, humor, and beauty." The audience erupted in applause, and Diane smiled softly, the kind of smile that holds a lifetime of memories. Years later, another man would briefly enter her life and leave a different kind of mark: Keanu Reeves. After Keanu, Diane would never love again, saying that her chapter of romance felt complete. They first met on the set of Something's Gotta Give, a romantic comedy directed by Nancy Meyers. Diane, 58 at the time, played Erica Barry, a successful playwright, while Keanu, 38, played Julian Mercer, a charming young doctor. They weren't the main couple, but their effortless on-screen chemistry caught everyone's attention. 2 years later, in 2005, rumors spread that Keanu had broken up with his girlfriend Lynn Collins from the lake house to pursue Diane. At 40, facing his own quiet loneliness, Keanu was drawn to her intelligence, grace, and warmth, 19 years his senior. They were seen together at events, often sharing long phone calls or evenings at Keanu's Los Angeles home. For a time, he found peace in her company, a calm that fame had rarely allowed him. Diane later told Ellen DeGeneres in 2017, "Keanu loved me deeply, not just a little, but a love that grew over time." They laughed about their age gap, with Keanu calling her the most interesting woman I've ever met, and she teasing him as the gentle man with the sad eyes. Behind their smiles, though, tension lingered. The 19-year age difference made Diane self-conscious. "No one wants to see me with such a young man," she once said. Keanu, still healing from the losses of his sister and longtime partner, feared attachment. In 2006, when Diane joked to friends, "I'm going to marry Keanu, he likes older women," he reportedly grew distant and ended the relationship, unwilling to commit to anyone. After Keanu, Diane closed the door on love entirely. Yet before all these high-profile romances, there had been another, her very first love. His name was Robert Leiser, a music producer and childhood friend from Santa Ana, California. They met in the 1960s, when Diane was an 18-year-old dreamer just beginning her journey to New York in pursuit of acting. Lesser, a few years older, was Diane's first love. They shared a New York romance filled with late-evening walks, passionate talks about art, and kisses under the rain. Diane was a whirlwind, innocent yet captivating. Their relationship lasted about a year before ending quietly when she left for Broadway. Lesser went on to become a film producer, and though their paths diverged, they remained close friends. Another brief but artistic chapter came in 1977, with the American pop artist Edward Ruscha. They met through the Los Angeles art scene, where Diane often wandered galleries seeking inspiration for her roles. Ruscha, 39, and Diane, 31, bonded over creativity. He painted abstract visions while she brought characters to life in Annie Hall. Their romance lasted barely 2 months, but was filled with late-night talks about art, poetry, and purpose. Then came an almost love story with Steve Jobs in the early 1980s. They met through the tech and creative circles of Silicon Valley while Diane was exploring ideas for a new film. They went on a few dates, but she declined a second, realizing their worlds were too different. Jobs later married Laureen Powell, but once said Diane was the most interesting woman I've ever met. In her later years, Diane chose peace, a warm wooden home in Los Angeles, where she tended flowers, raised dogs, and poured her love into her 2 adopted children. By her 50s, she had made a bold decision to become a single mother. After her long, tumultuous relationships with Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, and Al Pacino, she realized she didn't need a man to complete her life. Her journey into motherhood began with her daughter, Dexter Keaton, born in 1995 and adopted from a California agency. Holding baby Dexter in her Beverly Hills home, Diane knew she had found a new kind of light. Becoming a mother at 50 wasn't easy. She was filming The First Wives Club and Marvin's Room, yet still found time for night feedings and morning play. In 2001, when Dexter was 6, Diane expanded her family by adopting a son, Duke Keaton, born in 2000. At 55, she endured countless evaluations and home checks, but her determination never wavered. Duke, drawn to photography from a young age, and Dexter, who loved animals, grew up in a home full of laughter. Diane, often seen in her signature suits, would play poker with them and fill the evenings with music and laughter. Her joy as a mother was something she often celebrated. "Having children is more important than anything I've ever done," she once said. Though she worried about age and time, moments like holding Dexter as she slept or watching Duke photograph Kobe Bryant at a Lakers game made her feel alive again. She raised both children away from Hollywood's glare, giving them freedom to follow their own paths. Dexter became a veterinary technician, graduating from Carrington College, while Duke pursued music and photography. "They don't care about my work, and that's very healthy," Diane said proudly. Her home was a sanctuary, filled with keepsakes, laughter, and love. Family nights meant swimming trips, movie marathons, and shared dinners. On Mother's Day 2014, Dexter, then 29, posted, "I'm grateful to be adopted by such a strong, beautiful woman like my mom." In 2021, when she married Jordan White in Hawaii, Diane, glowing in her cream suit, stood as both mother and best friend. Duke, now 25, quieter but deeply devoted, joined her at the book club premiere in 2018. On his sister's birthday, he wrote, "Happy birthday to the best sister. Even if I'm annoying, I still love you." Words like those showed that Diane was more than a mother. She was their anchor, their inspiration, and the heart that held their small world together. Throughout her life, Diane Keaton chose solitude. Not because she was unloved, but because she had loved too deeply, too completely, too many times. The men who passed through her life left deep marks, a touch of passion, a trace of incompleteness, and wounds that never fully healed. After each romance, Diane quietly retreated into herself, learning to laugh alone, dine alone, and confide only in her journals. In one interview, she once said, "I'm not lonely. I just don't have the courage to begin again." The end of her 15-year relationship with Al Pacino marked a turning point. It was as if she had closed a door inside her heart, one she never tried to reopen. She no longer sought love, no longer dreamed of a home or a wedding. Her love with Pacino had been both luminous and devastating, a chapter so complete that nothing else could follow. "I once thought I would marry him," she reflected, "but maybe our love was meant only to live in memory." After that, Diane poured herself into her craft, into art, and into raising her children, quiet acts of mending the space Pacino left behind. For her, love was no longer something to seek, but something that had come, shone brightly, and passed, leaving behind a gentle, everlasting echo. The name Al Pacino remained a silent mark in her life, unspoken, yet ever present. In her later years, her daughter Dexter revealed that her mother still kept a small framed photo on her bedside table, a picture of Diane and Pacino laughing together behind the scenes of The Godfather. "Mom never said much," Dexter recalled, "but I've seen her hold that photo, smiling for a long time, as if time rewound and she was that girl again, in love for the first time." For Diane, it was the one love she truly wished to marry, and the last time she dared to dream of a wedding. She lived her life amid the glitter of Hollywood, adored by millions, yet her heart remained tethered to one man. When she passed, that same photograph was said to rest beside her, its edges worn, but their faces still radiant. It all came to an end on an October morning in 2025, when the film world was stunned to learn that Diane Keaton had died at 79 at a hospital in Santa Monica, California. Her passing was sudden, just days after being admitted with an acute illness. Her family, Dexter, Duke, and a few close friends, kept the details private. The death certificate later confirmed the cause: bacterial pneumonia, a vicious infection that fills the lungs with fluid and pus, leading to respiratory failure. At 79, her body simply could not fight anymore, and the illness claimed her within days. Her final journey was quiet, much like the peaceful years that followed her fame. Musician Carol Bayer Sager shared that, weeks earlier, she had seen Diane thinner than usual, likely after evacuating Los Angeles due to wildfires. She was frail, Carol said, but still radiant, still smiling. On the morning of October 11th, the Los Angeles Fire Department received an emergency call from her Beverly Hills home. Diane was rushed to the hospital, her family by her side, shielded from the media's glare. No one expected that a woman who had survived skin cancer at 20 and battled bulimia in her youth would leave the world so swiftly. Bacterial pneumonia, the silent enemy, had infected the air sacs in her lungs, causing fever, chills, and shortness of breath. Her aging body couldn't withstand the rapid decline. Though there was no sign of major underlying illness, her history of skin cancer, both basal cell and squamous cell, may have made her more vulnerable. Diane had long spoken openly about those struggles, especially bulimia, an eating disorder that once consumed her during her early fame, though none of it directly caused her death. Her health deteriorated suddenly, leaving friends and fans in shock. A close source told Deadline, "In her final days, Diane was serene, surrounded by love. Though her departure was sudden, she left the world with the same quiet radiance that defined her." Just a year earlier, she appeared in Summer Camp 2024, playing a woman rediscovering youthful joy. It wasn't her greatest film, but it carried her unmistakable warmth and humor. Friends and colleagues, Woody Allen, who called her his only true audience, Nancy Meyers, who said she made everything better, and Francis Ford Coppola, who wrote, "She was the embodiment of creativity." All mourned deeply. Her family requested that those wishing to honor her do so by donating to animal shelters and food banks, the causes Diane Keaton had quietly championed all her life. From her love for pets to her compassion for the homeless, the radiant smile that once lit up Annie Hall now lives on as a timeless memory. In one of her final interviews before her passing, Diane Keaton revealed why she chose a life of solitude. "I loved fully, perhaps too fully. In the end, I realized I didn't need a man to feel complete. I just needed peace." Those words were more than a confession. They were a graceful farewell to the past, to all the loves that never truly ended, and the memories she chose to keep. Diane left this world on her own terms, with the same freedom she had pursued her entire life. And perhaps that is why millions around the world wept, not just for her death, but for the authenticity with which she lived. A woman who dared to live for herself, even when it meant walking alone. Do you think Diane was content with that choice? Share your thoughts below. And if you cherish her legacy, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of Hollywood's greatest icons, where behind every shimmer of fame lies a heart full of very human emotion.